Thank you, Tom. Unfortunately, this is not my home. I wish it was. This is the office where I work from. We're broadcasting right now live from Stockholm, Arena Staden. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. Today, I'm going to talk about different kind of trends and different methods, and I'm going to take it from a very practical point of view. What is important is not to project a vision or what is going to happen in the market in a visionary way in 10 or 20 years. What we want as well is to give a very practical impression about the market trends and what is going on today, and of course where it's going in short term and long term. I'm going to share my presentation with you, and let's start this together. Super. I hope you can all see my screen. Great. So today, as we said, we're going to talk about technology services and tool. We're going to go through different kind of topics, starting from discussing the global scope of talent acquisition as an organization. What is needed for you if you are working in talent acquisition to have in place in order to make sure that your team are equipped to handle all the challenges? We're going to talk about leadership, new foundations. It's important. We're not talking here about technology, but we're talking about enablers that will make our job very soothe to all those changes happening around us. So we're going to talk about leadership a bit. We're going to talk about the latest offering from talent acquisition. What are the services that talent acquisition as a department can offer today? Are we all doing this? Do we need to have a change of structure in order to be able to provide all that kind of services? Then I'm going to talk about the intelligent process, how we can just change our recruitment process in order to make it unbiased, in order to make it more suitable to cover the potential needs of your organization, especially if it was on a global level. I'm going to talk about diversity of thought and give you some practical solutions about how we can just assure that we can measure diversity with the help with the different tools and assessments. Gonna talk about the agility and virtual tribes. That's very important. That's actually the way forward, and it's very important for us to focus on that point. I'm going to go through it at the end of our presentation. Last but not least is we're talking about evidence-based and data-driven recruitment, how we can just use data from a practical point of view. Let's start with the big things. It's like we talk about talent acquisition as a scope. Before you start any work in any sort of division, you should make sure that you have those pillars in place. And I'm talking here about setting your vision and mission and having a clear understanding of the business needs of the organization. And if you are working with a global organization, you need to make sure that all the toolbox is standardized. You should as well focus on how to align the recruitment process on a global level, taking under consideration the local needs and the global needs, and frame that in a very clear way. You should start realize that assessment that are based on AI are very common nowadays, and they will be the way forward in order to reduce the numbers of headcounts in your department, being more automated and at the same time working in a more efficient way. So you should just start to optimize your assessment service centers if you don't have one. KPIs, it's a very important point for all of us, and it should be clear. And at the same time, what is more important than everything is the talent pools. Right now, most of us working in talent acquisition are working on a different kind of strategy when we are dealing with day-to-day challenges when it comes to replacement. Whenever we lose a person in the organization, we receive requests from the hiring managers that we need this person and this person. But we cannot survive in that kind of mindset unless we start working proactively. And we're going to talk about this later on in the virtual tribes slides that comes at the end. And then remember all the time, whenever you have those in place, to follow up. That's a very important thing. Going to go shortly into the transformative leadership. That is new foundations of handling leadership. If you talk about technology and trends, in a market when it comes to talent acquisition. We cannot make this happen without having a strong leadership foundations in our organization. I'm not talking here about leaders. I'm not talking here about only managers. I'm talking about each one of us taking a self-leadership in terms of taking responsibilities of being part of the team and spread the words about how we can just become better in combination in a virtual team between the talent acquisition and the organization themselves. And after long studies with SAB for 2 years almost, we came up with those 6 elements, that are very fundamental for us. And the most important thing is to start about how to set a strategic frame. Everything should be super clear to your talent acquisition as a department and to HR as a department. One of the strongest pillars as well that is becoming very common, and not traditions, especially in HR departments, is how we as leaders can share powers, how we can share responsibilities, how we align the project responsibilities on people. Not only we as managers or leaders take full control over the decision-making process. We notice a lot of companies right now that they are going more and more into flat organization when the numbers of managers and leaders is decreasing. And that's all about the sharing power and how to equip the team to be more to increase the level of self-leadership in the team by sharing responsibilities and at the same time giving a right chance for everyone to share opinions and be part of the decision making. Learning together, it's important from all of us, and we do it in a collective way. That's the new thing, that we cannot just have streams for individual learning path. It's important right now to do it in a collective way because there is a different values of doing this. Inspired by bigger purpose. Purpose should always be clear and should be adaptable. Sometimes we create a purpose for us and we stick to this for years. Actually, our KPIs, our vision, our values, our principles, our purposes should be adaptive to what is happening within the organization and what is happening in the market as well. So make sure that you have a fresh purpose that is compliant to what is happening within your organization. Very important point as well is psychological safety. Your team needs to be safe, feeling safe around everything happening around them. And that's not an easy point. And there is a very science-based ways to measure psychological safety and make sure that your team are feeling safe. Last thing is listen empathically. We should have that kind of thing in mind whenever we are trying to approach change, whenever we're trying to implement those new trends that I'm going to talk about later, that we need to have that kind of rule in mind, because bringing change means that you should be open to all the consequences that comes around that small or big decision. Those are, for example, our missions and vision. I'm not going to go through them, but in general, we try to update this every year. Now, when we talk about the offering of the latest offering for talent acquisition, there are several kind of services. If I compare this 5 years ago when I started working as a recruiter, it was more of, okay, let's provide end-to-end full cycle recruitment services to our managers, for example. Or if I was working as a consultant recruitment agencies, let's try to attract candidates. But this is changing. Now talent acquisition is becoming more and more broad to cover different kind of services. And I'm talking here about full cycle recruitment. I'm talking about executive recruitment. I'm talking about comprehensive second opinions. I'm talking about building talent pool and the art of doing this. Right now, it's like when we talk about LinkedIn, for example, there is a different kind of methodologies and strategies how to build and nurture talent pools. And you can just use support of a lot of TRM systems that can do this. But this is a continuous job. It's not related to your needs today. It's related to your business plan, and it's related to have a prediction of where your internal market is going and what is happening across other competitors and other companies around you. We're talking about technical assessment that took a lot of huge space, and right now we have a lot of, for example, interactive solutions that gives a chance for managers, especially in technology departments, to have live sessions when we can evaluate people and different things. We're talking about personality and logical tests, and the the buzz around this is this very something a tool that we can rely on? Is it positive? Does that mean we discluding some people from getting their fair chance? Is this helping us with being unbiased or not? There's a lot of opinions about this. We're going to talk about it in a different slide as well. Talking about validations, group validation is one of the things that we're proud of. There is a study I'm going to share with you later on. Team composition analysis, I'm going to show you practical examples about this as well. And then we're talking about different packages of manager supports, assessments starting from search reports, trend reports, talent insight reports, workshops about LinkedIn when the manager is taking more active role and being shown and visible towards the market and the candidates and being closer to them, and interview coaching. So as you see, it's like talent acquisition is growing and broaden up the areas that they're covering. And I think that this is only the beginning. Soon we're starting to interact with different setups as well. Now to go into more practical way and talk about the assessment, and that's very important part for all of us. Talking here about potentials, what is the latest trends right now in measuring potentials? Usually those are a study that has been conducted on a huge amount of candidates in order just to see the accuracy of some assessment that we are doing during our recruitment process, and how is this correlated to have a productive team later on. So as you see here, it's like we're talking about logical tests, we're talking about structured interviews, we're talking about personality assessment, unstructured interviews, references, years of experience and educations. And by years of experience and educations, I'm going to refer to this as readiness. So recruitment processes and all should cover all those elements, and we are aware of this. But what is more important than the others? You see from this chart that sometimes the old method of focusing about recruitment was all relying on the years of experience, the educations, where are those people coming from, what kind of background, I mean, it's like from educational point of view. And it was more focused on that aspect out of very high percentage. And recently things change, because what is happening in certain departments, especially when we talk about us, for example, banks, we don't consider ourselves as a financial institution. We are a fintech organization as well. So the rapidly changing environment in technology and in finance department is forcing us to move into a direction when we are becoming more and more looking for people who called hybrid knowledge people. And that terms wasn't there 2 years ago. In a matter of fact, hybrid knowledge people are those people who can just have a different views over how we analyze complex situations and problems. If we talked before that about T-shape and I-shape, when we had these people who are used to be vertically very specialized within very narrow area, and how important it was for big organization to have those people in place. Now we're talking about a different trend that is more T-shape or hybrid knowledge people, and those people can grow not vertically, horizontally. That means they can be a good bridge between departments. So what you're gonna notice soon is that finance as an organization, as a department, for example, or technology or any other organization, they will have cross collaborations in different areas. I can give you clear examples about this. When you talk about data analysis roles, those are existed everywhere. They're existed in the service sector areas, they're existed in technology, they're existed in corporate function and financial institutions departments, and they are existed anywhere. So hybrid knowledge people can cover those kind of challenges across the organizations due to the fact that they come from, they have a different backgrounds and not only focus on one area, it's much more broader. And that means when we are talking about potentials in general, then we need really to change our process and make it more intelligent. And that is what has happened recently. Right now, assessment can help us measuring potentials. And by measuring potentials, we're making sure that whenever a change happen or occur within the organization, and it's going to happen in a faster speed, if you compare it to the past 5 years. Past 5 years, when I talk about, for example, IT, the average period for a person to stay in a role was between like 3 to 4 years. Right now, the roles are changing so much. We have a lot of programming languages that they start in, and they have a lot of frameworks that could be added on top of that. So that means you need to really change everything every 2 years till 3 years. So if we don't have people who have high potentials capacity to address this change and cope with that, then we will end up with an organization with a huge fraction. That is, people who are capable to adapt with change, and those people will take the majority of the load, and people who are not equipped to handle all the challenges of the new jobs, and those people they will handle all more basic tasks and admin tasks. And as a result of this, you're going to have unfair way of distribution of the talent, the task and responsibilities. On a longer run, that could cause huge problems, especially in countries like for example, Sweden or something, when you have huge difficulties with the unions and everything to make small changes in the organization structures and everything. So to avoid this situation, you need to start measure your recruitment by potentials. And how to do this? It's a combination between 4 different things. That is logical test, and it depends. We don't need to have high scores of logical tests in all areas. What is important is to analyze the needs of each specific role and come with the scoring that is matching that needs. We're talking about conscientious. That is very important, and that is measuring your capacity to set targets and goals and follow them. We're talking about extroversion, and not extroversion from the traditional way of working. It's talking about how easy it is for you to interact with different areas and different departments and work broadly and horizontally, not only vertically, as we mentioned it before. We're talking about emotional stability, and that is the way you analyze feedback, the way you even handle stress and have time management, and even how to interact with the people around you, to what extent you're open and show emotions. And the final one, openness, and here I'm talking about how adaptive you are as a person to handle change. Now, there is a lot of assessment tools that can elements for you. Good scoring for potentials. Usually potentials for us right now is taken up to 70% from our way of evaluating people. The second part, we're talking about readiness, and that is the experience is taken around 30%, not more than that, and references very low percentage in terms of our assessment in general. Now I'm going to talk about 2 important things, team analysis and group validation. And in order to do this, I'm going to start first with the newest trends in a market, that is group validation. Group validation is assessment when we move our way of thinking from focusing on individuals to focus on groups of people that they share the same task and responsibilities. Like hypothetically, let's say that we have 600 persons in certain organization doing exact the same type of job. So what do we do with this group validations? We study those norm groups and we try to draw conclusions. So we bring a lot of specialists from the branch, managers, we bring a lot of psychologists and professors that are dealing with the human behavior, and we study those people. We study the norm groups, the role models, and we study the people who are low performers. And we try, based on this and those steps that you see in this screen, to draw conclusions that will help us and have a more productive environment. At the same time, it will help us lowering the turnover rate. This is a study that we did for 24/7. As you know, we are a bank. We have a responsibility to support our client and customers 24/7 and answer all the calls. In 6 years ago, we had a huge problems when the turnover rate was extremely high. We were losing a lot of people because the pressure is very high there. So we did this study last year, and actually we reduced the turnover rates to only 11% by having this study. We reached a lot of great conclusions about what is the behavior that we were doing, what was wrong we were doing when we do recruitment. We analyze the behavior between different patterns, as you see here in this document. And based on this, we reach a certain profile. We call it profile test, that if we do all recruitment based on this within this area, then we will assure that the risk is minimum. And that has huge effect over our turnover as a result. Now, I'm going to talk about, before I jump into the other platform, I'm going to talk about the agility and how important it is nowadays to mix your organization between different areas. As you see here, this is an example of my organization today. It's in the purple area, it's line organization when we used to work in this way like 5-6 years ago. But right now with agile methodologies and working with virtual tribes, it's more common to create specific areas within your organization, even if you don't have a big of a size that is on global level, and have a combinations between those people and the organization themselves. So for example, let's take a look at the developer global pool. So it's a combination between people working as a developers, managers working as a developers, talent acquisition responsible for the development area, and those people, they work hand in hand in order to develop development, like recruitment strategy, building up talent pools, and work together on finding different ways in order to enhance the culture for those people working with this area. And the same things, we're doing it for the cybersecurity, or agile roles, for data roles. So now you cannot just rely 100% on your resources. You need to align with the organization and start to work hand in hand together. Invite them to become part of your team virtually. And this is what we are doing right now to cover 16,000 employees that we have today in SAB, and to cover more than 2,000 recruitment. And we are only 40 persons. How we do this? We do this because we collaborate in virtual setup with our managers who are taking responsibilities to help us as well in the recruitment. Now, the last important part that I want to talk about that is very important for me, and I'm going to switch right now into another platform, so I hope it works well. Okay, let's see here. Sorry, I hope that you can still see my screen. This is, as you see here, it's a chart when it helps you analyzing your needs from recruitment point of view as a collective way. The biggest mistake we were doing over the past 6-7 years, and I acknowledge this, it was one of the biggest mistakes that we did. Whenever we do a recruitment, we focus on what kind of persons we need. We forget that when we are joining a team, those people will affect our behavior, will affect our productivity, will affect the way that we analyze things and solve conflicts, and solve problems, and solve projects related to work and everything. So when we are doing recruitment, we need to take this under consideration. So what we started to do recently is like this. So whenever we do a recruitment for a certain person, we should not forget how to analyze the behavior or the surrounds or the teams. This is an example about one of my teams, and it's responsible for the tech. As you see here, when I click on team view, you will see my behavior as an individualist person, regardless of the connections of the people around me. But the second I put myself in that constellation, then my behavior will change. And even the way I interact with the task and routines and everything related to work will change. Like, let's say how some strong people who are in driver's seat might push people into becoming more implementers. And implementers are those people who are taking the vision and making it reality in a very practical way. A good setup of a team should be around 70% implementers, 20% integrators that are responsible for the well-being of the team and the bonds and the emotional stability, as we mentioned it before, and how the team are feeling well, and should be around like 10% of the innovators and few percent of drivers. By having that kind of harmonious way of dividing the team, then we will make sure that we have very high productive team that is focusing on implementation, not only talking about visions, but driving things forward from the beginning to the end in a very steady steps. At the same time, having this in place, will support you so much taking care of those minority. Sometimes when you analyze the team that you have, you realize that you have a few people who doesn't belong or doesn't go along with the rest of the people. You might end up with a setup when you have 90% implementers and 5% integrator. You as a leader, as a driver, how would those minority feel? How is those assessment nowadays is helping us taking care of minority when we are talking in general about diversity and inclusion? Diversity and inclusion, in my point of view, should be a mirror of what is happening in the society. So if you have a percentage of foreign people coming from different, I'm talking here about diversity of thought, not only gender and ethnicity, because absolutely we're covering this, but what is more important for me as well is not only that, is diversity of thought. So it should be a mirror reflecting the market as well. So if your foreign percentage is 25% in the society, then you should have the same percentage in your organization. But you should be aware that those kind of assessment will give you indications about the people who are not feeling well, the people who are considered as a very small minority, and you need to take an extra care with them to make them feel more included and make them feel more welcome. And that is a good indications about how we can just move our focus from recruiting individuals to connect this to recruiting teams. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that we did when we were focusing each case on doing this. Right now, what we're doing it on a team level. So all our teams, they have done assessment process like this. They have records in the system, and the managers also there. You can realize and get a lot of indications about the strength and weaknesses for each one of them, and you can see the strength and weaknesses of the team as a whole. So the latest area in this subject is how to become more focused on team. Now I have 3 minutes left. I'm going to talk about quickly the last point, and we are on time, talking about utilizing data in general. There is a new tool that I'd like to share with you today, Talent Insights from LinkedIn. It's not provided for everyone, so you need to subscribe this. But what is important about this tool is whenever you want to search for something, you can understand how this role is growing across Europe or other countries. If you're focusing about diversity and you have the challenges convincing your managers that why we cannot just attract females or males, you can just get a percentage here. What is more important as well, when you focus about the skills, you can get conclusions about how the role is growing and developing. So you don't focus on only today that I'm going to bring Java. I need to focus on other trends that this role is focusing on in order to keep up with what is happening in the market. I recommend people as well to do it because it was helpful and supportive for us to work a bit more longer term and support us in our business plan in 2 to 3 years ahead from now. Now that was my presentation for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna stop sharing, and I don't know if you have any time for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Sam, for a very clear presentation. And unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. There were a couple of questions, but maybe we can find a way to get them to you. I just want to read here the message from Roxana. Hi, so happy to attend this conference. Interesting sessions and topic to start on. So Roxanne likes the topics, and there are more compliments. You certainly showed us some good stuff to start the conference with today.
Thank you.
Super.
Guys.